Hello, everyone. My name is Félix Huot. I'm a master's student in animal science at Laval University. With you today, I will bring you directly into the dairy production. Let's imagine that we can use the analysis of the milk to do a health balance for animals. In principle, this is something that can be done to predict the ketones of dairy cows or to confirm a gestation. My master's project is to put in place a new diagnostic tool thanks to an analysis of cow's milk. What we try to predict subclinical ruminal acidosis thanks to the fatty acid profiles. What is subclinical ruminal acidosis? We have to know that this is a nutritional disorder that is significant for modern dairy businesses. It comes when there's an imbalance between the efficient and energy-rich elements in the food. It leads to a lower pH and several consequences, and especially drops in production, drops in food conversion. Subclinical acidosis is very difficult to detect on the farm. That's why it's interesting to invest some energy to develop a tool for that detection. To develop that tool, first of all, we had to harvest some samples from the cows to evaluate the fatty acid profile. And at the same time, we wanted to measure what happens in the rumen. So we selected 36 cows out in 10 commercial farms on which we harvested every 2 weeks some milk samples, which we analyzed using infrared spectroscopy in a lab to extract the fatty acid profile. At the same time, these cows received one bolus, a sensor, which we inserted in their mouth that would go to their rumen. That sensor was put in place and sent us real-time data of pH readings during 150 days directly on our computers. And the analysis of those pH data allow us to make one observation. Notably, we noted that the rumen pH is very variable between animals. And we also noted that the pH varied a lot during the day and varied in a different way for each animal. And we also observed that this variation during the day is produced by different management practices on the farm. We also were able to make a link between the evolution of pH and the evolution of days in milk for each cow. And we saw that the average pH increased gradually during the first days of lactation of the animals. Then, and that's the stage we're working on, the thing is to predict rumen pH and acidosis thanks to the fatty acid profile. For that, we use artificial intelligence. We already have interesting correlations between the pH we predicted based on the fatty acid profiles and the pH we measured. The question, is it possible to predict subclinical ruminal acidosis using the fatty acid profiles? If I'm telling you, we're on something interesting. We're onto some interesting results, but there's still a lot more to do to come for something that will be used on our farms. So, in a close future, so long for the results of that study. More digestible alfalfa, are they all more digestible? First of all, why should we improve the digestibility of alfalfa? It was established that the improving by 2 units of the digestibility of fibers allows for an increase of milk production by 0.23 kilogram per day per cow. Moreover, increasing the digestibility of alfalfa fiber would have the potential of creating a greater flexibility on the harvesting time. So a delay of about 1 week in the harvesting of that type of alfalfa could allow us to increase performance without affecting too much the quality of the forage. What limits the digestibility of alfalfa? It's mostly the lignin, which is a non-digestible compound. How can we validate whether more digestible alfalfa are really all more digestible? We compared 6 supposedly more digestible cultivars to 2 control cultivars in Quebec conditions. The cultivars were harvested in the bud stage with 4 harvestings or in the early flowering, corresponding to 3 cuttings per season. Among the 6 more digestible cultivars, 2 were genetically modified for a reduced lignin content. 4 came from the conventional genetic selection. 2 selected for lower lignin content. 1 selected for high pectin content, and 1 selected for improved enzyme digestibility. So, to the question, are all that supposedly more digestible alfalfa or really more digestible when all alfalfa are collected at the same time? The answer is no. Only the 2 GMO cultivars had a higher digestibility by 4% units compared to controls. So the 4 cultivars from conventional selection had the digestibility similar to those of the controls. So GMO alfalfa is more digestible, but what about their yield? The OGM alfalfa have yield similar to those of the control cultivars. Now, the more digestible cultivars, do they allow more flexibility into the regarding the harvesting time? The answer is yes. We compared the GMO cultivars harvested at the early flowering stage to the control harvested at the bud stage. So the GMO were harvested 7 days later. So they were harvested one time less per year, and they produced a yield of 2 hectares higher per season. And the fiber digestibility was similar to the cultivars harvested. However, the cultivars GMO that were harvested later had a lower protein content, fiber, and higher fiber contents by 5.6%. So using GMO alfalfa cultivars can increase the digestibility of the fodder ration and potentially allow us to improve the food efficiency of dairy cows. They can also be used to allow for more flexibility for the harvesting time. So the GMO alfalfa has several benefits from an agronomical point of view, but its use is subject to several controversies. Thank you. Réduire du lait dépend de la cap. On veut transformer le fourrage et les concentrés en lait, qui est une source importante de nutriments. La nouvelle production est une occupation très naturelle pour la vache. Ils peuvent avoir une longue carrière à produire du lait. Heureusement, ce n'est pas fait dans tous les pays qui produisent du lait. Au Canada, par exemple, la vache holstein moyenne a le potentiel génétique de vivre pendant 8,5 années. Et pourtant, après avoir une croissance de 2 ans, d'habitude, sa vie est coupée et on la retire après avoir produit du lait pendant seulement 3 ans. Ici, on peut remarquer 2 choses. Tout d'abord, les vaches demeurent dans le troupeau pendant 5 ans, ce qui est beaucoup plus court que leur potentiel. Et deuxièmement, ça représente 40% de la vie seulement de la lactation. Et pourtant, la plupart de la recherche sur la longévité à la réforme se concentre seulement sur les vaches qui font partie du cheptel de travail. Les études sur la longévité demandent qu'on collecte des données pendant une longue période de temps, ce qui fait en sorte que c'est difficile de faire correspondre ça à des temps normaux pour des recherches habituelles. Mais qu'en est-il des améliorations de la longévité? Certaines des études ont commencé il y a plus de 30 ans. On a maintenant, dans notre boîte à outils, des techniques d'apprentissage machine provenant du domaine de l'intelligence artificielle. Et ces techniques pourraient être adaptées de façon très efficace. Et une combinaison de ces outils très puissants avec cette riche base de données, c'est là-dessus que je me concentre pour étudier la longévité des vaches. Si on combine les données avec des résultats de bien-être et des pratiques de régie, les objectifs de ma recherche sont les suivants. Tout d'abord, voir les effets de l'addition des vaches lorsqu'elles sont enceintes qu'elles vont mettre bas pour la longévité. Deuxièmement, évaluer l'effet des pratiques de régie du début de la vie pour ces mêmes mesures. Et troisièmement, étudier la relation entre le résultat sur les vaches productives avec la performance du troupeau et la matrice de longévité. Pour atteindre ces objectifs, j'adopte des outils d'apprentissage machine comme les Artificial Neural Networks et les forêts aléatoires à nos vaches et à nos troupeaux. En me concentrant sur un ensemble diversifié de résultats, cette recherche va mettre une valeur en dollars sur l'adoption des meilleures pratiques de régie pour améliorer à la fois le bien-être et la longévité des vaches. Ça va aussi découvrir des indicateurs au début de la vie pour aider les producteurs à trouver les vaches qui vont avoir une carrière longue et pleine de succès.